your voice, your future. WPDE ABC 15 News presents the South Carolina House District 106 runoff debate. And now your moderator, Tim McGinnis.
Good morning. Two Republicans will face each other in a runoff election on Tuesday for the South Carolina House District 106 seat. Nelson Hardwick resigned from office in May, leaving it up for grabs. District 106 covers the Burgess community, Surfside, and Garden City areas. Tyler Servant and Russell Fry join me today. Now, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. We're not going to be real sticklers for time on this. If you can try to keep things under 2 minutes, over 2 minutes, I may have to put that hook out there and reel you in a little bit. And again, I do want to thank you both for joining me today. If you do mention another candidate by name, I'll give that candidate 30 seconds to respond and so forth. But I ask for the sake of time, let's not get too wrapped up into that. So let's get right into it. We have about 28 minutes now for this debate. First question, and we decided that Mr. Servant's going to take the first question, or Mr. Fry is going to take the first question, Mr. Servant will answer second, then we'll move in that order until closing remarks. So first up, Mr. Servant, you were elected to Horry County Council just over a year ago. Mr. Fry, you have worked behind the scenes with the local Republican Party for a number of years. So for both of you, why do you want to have this new job as a House Representative?
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. This is an important election, and I'm seeking the Republican nomination to be your next state representative. I think it is vital that your next representative be an accessible conservative that can fight for us and in the district to make sure that the work gets done, to make sure that we have adequate infrastructure, and to work with our local delegation, our county council, our federal delegation, to focus on things like infrastructure, reforming our education system, and making it easier for small businesses to succeed. So that's my motivation for running. Thank you, Tim.
All right. Mr. Servant.
The main reason why I'm running is I believe Republicans are sick and tired of electing candidates that campaign on conservative principles and values, but don't follow that when they get into office. Since I've been on county council, I have proven that I will hold up to those values, and no matter what the costs are, even when the vote's 11-1 and the pressure's on. And I'll do the same thing in Columbia. Thanks so much, Tim.
All right. Well, first question outside of that now is, as state lawmakers, you'd be the area's voice, your area's voice in the State House. And one of the big issues that lawmakers faced this year were our crumbling roads. The reports that we mentioned before about $20 billion over 20 years just to get us up to good condition. An idea was floated this year that was turned down, included a gas tax increase along with a personal property tax decrease. What would you do to get the roads up to good condition? First, that goes to you, Mr. Servant.
Well, thank you, Tim. As a conservative and as a businessman in the community, I know that we have to put plans forward to take care of these solutions. And my plan entails, one, reforming the DOT to make sure that the State Infrastructure Bank is under their control and that there's an executive, the executive branch is under control of them. Also, we need to make sure that the funding is based on economic need and benefit and not political broker wants and political paybacks. If this happens, Horry County will not only get its fair share, it'll get more than its fair share. And we will have funding for the Cell Road and I-73. But it's important to know that you got to have a plan before you go to Columbia and not just talk about the issues. You got to have a plan. Thank you, Tim.
Russell?
Thank you, Tim. I fundamentally reject the notion that we have to fall back on a tax increase. I think that's the last approach as a Republican. I think Mr. Servant would probably agree with me on that. But the state of South Carolina had over about $400 million in surplus this year. Most of that money went to roads. And I think it needs to continue to do that. The smart idea is to prioritize funding. And you do that. Roads and infrastructure are a core government function. A lot of times government funds things that are outside of that core government. So for core government functions, it is very important that we fund those adequately and prioritize things. When you cut spending and redirect wasteful spending to infrastructure projects, I think you can make up for some of those things. And another thing that I think that really hinders us is there's not a lot of dialogue that goes along between our federal officials, our state officials, and our county councils. Everyone has a role to play here. Everyone has a stake in the outcome, and everyone seems to be kind of operating in their own separate ways. And one final thing I think is frustrating for us here in Horry County are our environmentalists. They continue to hold up things and burn through taxpayer dollars so that we can finally get roads completed. And one of the best ways to stop environmentalists is to make sure that they have skin in the game, and you do that by maybe requiring them to put forth a bond. And I think those things together can really solve some of the issues here by funding core government functions. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, well, we talked about a road plan not making it out of Columbia this year. Something that did make it out of Columbia in special session was the Confederate flag came down from the State House grounds. Both houses of the legislature voted for it to come down. Governor Nikki Haley signed it into law. Russell Fry, how would you have voted?
Thank you, Tim. I said this the last time I was here, and I would have stood with Governor Nikki Haley, both of our United States senators, and our Republican legislature to take it down. It was certainly a difficult decision. The last time that I was here, we talked about how important it is to be cognizant of our history, and history is often uncomfortable. We need to learn from that. But the state of South Carolina has missed out on several economic opportunities because of that symbol, and it is time, based on the grace that was exhibited in Charleston, that flag came down. I would have supported the governor.
Tyler, how would you have voted on the flag?
I believe first and foremost there should have been public input and public opinion weighed in on this subject. Obviously, it did not go through committee in the South Carolina House or the South Carolina Senate. And since it did not go through committee and we didn't have public input, I think it should have gone on a referendum where people could have voiced their opinion and have it been heard throughout the state. I don't like that South Carolina was pressured into this by the national media. South Carolinians need to lead South Carolina, not CNN or MSNBC. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Next question, we'll start this one with Tyler Servant. Talk about something that's maybe, I don't know that it's unique to Horry County, but it's something that we see a lot of in Horry County, mopeds and golf carts. And these are regulated sometimes by local ordinances, but a lot of times by state ordinance. Do you think in both cases with golf carts and mopeds, are state laws tough enough? Or would you want to do something to strengthen them if you go to Columbia?
I believe a lot of these issues need to be local issues. You look at where the major amount of tourists are in our area, Myrtle Beach, Surfside Beach, and even in Garden City, we have Horry County Council that can rule on these issues. I think the state needs to focus in on repairing our roads, education, and other issues, and get out of the golf cart business.
That said, do you think that golf carts and mopeds need to be at all curtailed by the state?
I think all these issues need to be looked at going forward. There's more golf carts and more mopeds on the road now than ever. We have 16 million tourists coming here every year, and a lot of them do not know the roads and infrastructure we have, and they get lost. So I think any way we can have a public safety standpoint and help our tourists be safer on the roads is obviously a positive.
Same question to you, Russell Fry.
Thank you, Tim. Part of the problem with allowing local governments to kind of control each issue is that you achieve inconsistent results going from one locality to the next. I think we need uniformity in our state traffic laws. I think that's why we elect legislators to go to Columbia to pass uniform traffic laws. And this is a public safety issue. I know a lot of folks might not be able to afford a vehicle, or they have a golf cart and they live in Surfside Beach, or they're vacationing here and they pop across the street to the gas station or to the grocery store. But one of the biggest things I see is the problem with these vehicles on the roads themselves. They are not only a hazard to other drivers, but they're a hazard to themselves. And Senator Hembry has a proposal that I think the state should consider to make sure that these slower moving vehicles are not on major thoroughfares, because it is a public safety issue. If you've got mopeds driving up and down 501, we already see that 501 is hugely chaotic. So it's very important that we look out for the public safety of not only those who own mopeds and golf carts, but we also look out for the drivers on the roads and following the uniform traffic laws. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. We hit on this about tourism being king along the Grand Strand, and of course it is, and certainly in District 106. So is there more that you think that needs to be done from the state? We give a lot of money to the state, and a lot of people will complain we don't get a lot of money back from the state as a result. So, Russell Fry, first off for you, what would you want to do in Columbia to make sure that tax dollars spent here make their way back here?
Thank you, Tim. As Tim highlighted, part of the problem that we have is that Horry County is one of 46 counties, and we send roughly 8% of the money in the budget to Columbia, and we get pennies on the dollar back. I understand that that happens, but it is very important that we fight every day to get some of that money back here. Our roads, with the high growth, with 16 million tourists coming here every year, it is very important that our infrastructure is well maintained and cared for, and we've got to fight to get that done. Well, how do you do that? Horry County has always been the redheaded stepchild of South Carolina. The Charlestons and the Greenvilles and the Columbia seem to control everything, and that's a problem. One of the things that I'm proud of our delegation for is, although they have differences on issues here and there, they are very articulate in their advocacy for Horry County on trying to achieve and return some of these tax dollars here. I know most of those folks. I've worked with them through the Republican Party, and if elected, I look forward to working with them still to try to get some of that money back here to focus on our infrastructure, to focus on our schools, and to focus on things like the SEL project. Thank you, Tim.
All right, Tyler Servant, same to you. What will you do to get more money out of Columbia back here?
My grandparents moved down here from Coalwood, West Virginia in 1964 and opened up Surfside Realty Company, my family business in Surfside Beach. We've been open for over 50 years, and tourism business is core to our hearts, and it's a core piece of our economy. And there's not one legislator currently in our local delegation that is from the tourism industry, and that scares me. I think the tourism industry, we need to have somebody from the tourism industry in our delegation in Columbia to fight for those tax dollars, because when you're going to when you're going to other leaders in Columbia, they want to know what your experience is. And they want to know what you bring to the table and why you're fighting for those tax dollars. And I think it is critical to have somebody that has that knowledge of the tourism industry as a businessman in the community in Columbia fighting for us. Thank you, Tim.
All right. Next question is about public safety, because of course that's another concern that I think just about every resident of every district and every part of the state has. And your area is no different. What needs to be done from Columbia to improve public safety in your district? And do you think that the body cameras are a good idea?
First off, I think the body cameras were a great idea. Majority of the police officers out there do a great job, and they're honest in their dealings. And I think these body cameras are only going to back them up in that fact. Also, I believe that public safety should be #1 in budgeting. There's no excuse not to fully fund public safety in government, especially in this tourism area like we come from. Perception is key, and marketing dollars are spent to attract tourists here, and we got to make sure public safety is #1 in our state, not only for the tourists, but for the constituents in our districts. Thank you so much.
Russell?
Thanks, Tim. Public safety is a core government function. It is like infrastructure. It is something that the state and our localities are tasked with to improve on. And when you have in the South Strand in District 106 such a large influx of people moving in and development, our public services are strained. You know, my brother is a fireman, and he works down in Murrells Inlet, Garden City, and you know they do a great job down there. But there's a lot of folks that they're caring for. There's a lot of folks that they have to go rescue and do things. And from a state perspective, most of public safety is handled from the local perspective on county government or town government. But where the state can help out and where it's important is by making sure that we are working with our county council to achieve the funding they need to make sure that our firemen and police officers have the tools necessary to protect our seniors, to protect our residents, and to protect our tourists. There's no need in having multiple firehouses or things like that if you can't achieve and get to the people in time. The firehouses are important, but so is funding the guys who do the jobs. And so I look forward to working on that on the state level. It's very near and dear to my heart, my brother's safety, and public safety is a huge, huge responsibility of state government, and one which should be prioritized at the top of the list. Thank you, Tim.
Let's talk a little bit about health care. And of course, South Carolina is one of the states that opted out of health care expansion. Still a big problem health care is going to be facing all of us in the years to come as the boomers retire and as we all get a little bit older. My neck hurts today. But let's start off with you, Russell. Did South Carolina do the right thing opting out? And what can be done down the road to get ready for the onslaught that's coming?
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. Our governor and other governors across the nation that rejected Obamacare, took a lot of heat because they weren't receiving funding from the nation or from the federal government. I think that South Carolina made the right choice. A lot of times, and I said this the last time that I was here, a lot of times people look at that and say, well, look at all the money that we missed out on. But the other flip of the coin that I think is missing from the argument is, what were the costs? If it cost more for the state to implement these policies, then it wasn't worth it. And I think you are seeing that now, where Obamacare is costing so much money. It is an unsustainable program. So what can we do going forward? Well, a lot of this relies on the federal government. But from a state perspective, opening up insurance across state lines is important, and working with our federal delegation to do that, to keep healthcare costs low. I think you see a lot of that now, where costs seem to be skyrocketing, and unfortunately, the market can only bear so much. And when you have doctors that refuse to treat certain patients that have certain types of insurance or not, that's a problem. So I think from a state perspective, we need to be very cognizant of that and try to find free market solutions to solve these problems. The answer is not more government in healthcare. The answer is less government. Thank you, Tim.
Tyler, same to you. Did we do the right thing opting out of the Affordable Care Act, and what can we do to prevent the onslaught that's coming?
Sure. I believe South Carolina made the right decision in opting out. You know, South Carolina cannot become dependent on the federal government. The federal government is trillions of dollars in debt, and this one-time money, if we could get more money, but it's more than likely one-time money, it's unsustainable. And I compare it to Louisiana. You look when Louisiana got hit by Katrina. The federal government's been funneling money to them, and they've been balancing their budget on it. And this year they're having a hard time balancing their budget because the federal government is weaning them off of the Katrina money, and they're running out of money. So I agree. I reject Obamacare. I think it's a failed policy by the Obama administration, and I agree with our government by opting out.
Let's talk about roads again. And in your part of Horry County, northern tip of Georgetown County, the Southern Evacuation Lifeline will come up in just about any political conversation you have. What do you see needing to happen from the state level to get that off of the ground? And what will you do to fight for it to happen? Or does it need to happen? And we'll start off with you, Tyler Servant.
I believe it goes back to the plan I put forward. We have got to make sure that the DOT is reformed, and Horry County is getting its fair share. But you just can't say, let's get Horry County its fair share without a plan. You got to have a plan, and as a businessman, I know that. Horry County, we need to reform the DOT at the state level, bring the State Infrastructure Bank under DOT's control and accountable to an executive, and make sure we're funding projects based on economic benefit and need and not political brokers. This is so critical. And if we do that, then SEL project will get funding. And I-73 will get funding, and the other necessary projects in Horry County, because Horry County is such a huge tax base for the state of South Carolina. 16 million tourists come here every year, and we have a great retiree base, and we pay our fair share. It's time that the state of South Carolina give us our fair share back.
Russell Fry?
Thanks, Tim. The SEL project is critical to our area. And for those of you who are unaware of what it does, it actually links the South Strand, which is on a peninsula, ultimately to Aner. The unfortunate thing is that this cost, the projected cost is about $700 million to reach that. I think that this is an opportunity where local governments, state governments, and federal governments can shine by using funding in a smart way to achieve this result. What I do think is important for those on the South Strand is that we may not try a one size or a one bite at the apple approach. I think it's hugely critical for public safety reasons that we get across the walk-em-off first. And so if we have to take this in piecemeal approaches, I think that's important from a public safety perspective. Depending on where you live in the category of hurricane that's approaching, we either have to go to 501, which is already a parking lot, or we have to go south to Georgetown. So getting across the walk-em-off is very important. And if we can just get to Highway 701, it opens up a whole host of small secondary roads to get us out of town. I think that is probably the best approach given the budgeting constraints right now, but there's a lot of opportunity both from a county council perspective, from a state perspective, and a federal perspective to achieve this and to fully get the SEL project implemented. But a lot of it, of course, is contingent too, Tim, on the environmentalists and making sure that they don't hold up the process, and I think that's something that the state needs to examine. Thank you.
If you drive down Highway 17 business through your district, it's no doubt that small business is big business in Horry County. And I've talked about this in previous debates, and I think because it's something that I hear from business owners, is regulation. What can be done to eliminate much of the state regulation on small businesses. Or is the regulation right? Or is there a difference between smart regulation and maybe not so smart regulation? We start off with Russell Fry.
Thank you, Tim. Regulation, of course, is necessary. I don't think anyone will complain about that. But what I am concerned with as a Republican and a conservative is that regulators are almost like a fourth branch of government. The only difference is that we don't elect them. They're bureaucrats in Columbia or Washington or our localities that craft regulations for businesses. They craft regulations for everything. And they change from year to year. The problem that I see with regulations, one, is that they're unelected. And so I think it's important for the legislature to monitor that and to sunset some of these regulations so that they continually come up for review by the legislature and we weed out the bad regulations that are constraining our small businesses. Another thing that we need to look at is making sure that that we are checking our regulators. And that's very key. I mean, I come from a small business household. We grew up not with not a lot of resources, and part of the frustration that I hear in the district and from my parents and other small business owners is their frustration. They think that their government's not helping them or working with them. And if we are truly to be a state that promotes business growth, we need to put the open sign on the front door and allow our businesses to feel like their government's working with them and not against them. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Regulation in small business. What do you think, Tyler Servant?
As a small business owner and working in my family business, Surfside Realty Company, I know how hard these regulations and how much they affect businesses here in South Carolina. Not just existing businesses, but future businesses too. And we have to make sure that we're cutting this red tape. It's so critical for our economy and for the small businesses located here. We also have to make sure we're sunsetting these regulations and having them come up for review after a period of time to make sure this is something that's actually helping our area or hurting our area. So that's what I would be doing if I was in Columbia. Thanks so much, Tim.
Sure. And continuing on talking about the economy, let's talk about jobs. A lot of people say we need more higher paying jobs in Horry County, in South Carolina in general. Now, tourism does rule in District 106. Do you see room for other industry there? Or do you see room maybe to build on tourism and get more people employed in that industry? We'll start that off with Tyler Servant.
Thank you, Tim. I think first and foremost, we have to protect what we have. We have a great tourism business here in South Carolina and in Horry County. And not only just tourism, but we have a lot of retirees here that are instrumental in our economy, that go out and shop at our stores, that buy products here, that are big integral parts of our economy. We also need to grow our economy, and that starts with roads and infrastructure. No business or big business is going to relocate here unless we have the necessary infrastructure. And we got to have a plan for the DOT and be reforming the state government in regards to roads and infrastructure. And I have a plan. I'm willing to go to Columbia and implement it and fight for our tax dollars to get back here. And it's all linked together. It's all linked together.
Okay. Same question to you, Russell Fry.
Thanks, Tim. Everyone loves the big fish, the Volvos and the BMWs and the Boeings. Those are important. Of course, Horry County sometimes gets, based on our infrastructure that we have here, we sometimes feel like we get the short end of the stick. We don't have an interstate. We don't have a port south of us in Georgetown that is adequately dredged. And so it puts an enormous amount of pressure on our area to go and recruit. But we need to continue to do that. One of the things is there's a I'm supposed to do this in 2 minutes, but one of the things that we need to see is, of course, our infrastructure and making sure that that's up to par. Businesses do not relocate to areas where they can't move around, where the roads are unnavigable. So our infrastructure is crucial. I think that is priority number one. Another thing is keeping our taxes low, making it easy for businesses to open up and to keep the small business owners in business by not over-regulating them and overtaxing them. The small businesses, little mom and pop shops or barber shops or mechanics, those are the lifeblood of this economy. And so we need to continually protect our tourist economy, but we also need to make sure that District 106 in the state of South Carolina are open for business, and we do that by keeping taxes low and focusing on core government functions such as our infrastructure and also reforming our education system. Thank you.
One last question for you, and I hate to shortchange this question, but we do need to give you guys about a minute for closing remarks. So I'm going to just give you 30 seconds for this, and we'll start this with, I believe we're back to starting with Russell Fry here. 30 seconds. Is there anything you would do to to impede on the Second Amendment. Is there anything you would vote for in Columbia that would control guns?
No, that's not going to happen. I'm a pro-Second Amendment person. I grew up in a household with guns. I'm familiar with them. I think it is important that we protect that Second Amendment. It is in the Constitution for a reason, and so our right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And I think that's very important to remember. Part of the frustration is that even without guns, people would still find a way to harm each other or do whatever. But regulating guns or banning guns is not the answer. Thank you, Tim.
Tyler Servant.
Thanks, Tim. I'm a strong advocate of the Second Amendment, and the NRA recently gave me an A rating. My opponent has an A- rating. For what I know, I don't know why, but I am a strong opponent of the Second Amendment, and I will fight for any gun rights that they're trying to take away from us in Columbia. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. How about a 15-second rebuttal if you wanted, since you were inferred on that A- rating?
No, I'm proud of the A rating, the A- rating I have. I don't know where I received a mark, but I'm certainly a pro Second Amendment person, and I'm proud of that the NRA has labeled me as such. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Let's go to closing statements right now. We're going to start with Tyler Servant.
Yes, sir.
Okay. 1 minute.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. I'm a businessman in the community, and that's what we need in Columbia, someone to represent the business community and our needs and areas. My opponent's a lawyer, and he's done a lot of talking throughout the campaign about the problems that we have here in South Carolina and here in Horry County. But I've put plans forward to address those problems. I have a plan for the DOT and restructuring the roads and infrastructure here in South Carolina. I have a plan for education. I have a plan for everything else. And I wish that you humbly vote for me on August 11th.
Russell Fry.
Thank you, Tim. I grew up in a household, we didn't have much. I saw from a very early age the struggles my parents had in working and to provide for our families. And that's the prism from which I view the world. And I think it's important that your next representative understand that, understand the value of working for $1, and understand the struggles that people have in middle-class families. Conservatism is a movement, and the beauty of it is that it is a great alternative to liberalism. But conservatism is not just saying no and writing a press release. Conservatism is winning the argument. Conservatism is getting people on your side. It is vital that your next representative not only, when times of growth in government come forward, vote no, but win the argument and attract people to our side. I know most of the folks. I've championed these conservative causes all my life. I believe in the movement. And your next representative needs to be an advocate up there who's willing to fight for you and speak on your behalf and speak with you. Your next representative needs to be accessible and needs to be a conservative leader that you can trust. And I appreciate your support last week. I appreciate your prayers, and I ask for your vote again on Tuesday. Thank you so much.
Okay. Tyler Servant, Russell Fry, thank you for being with me this morning. If you live in District 106, I'm sure either one of these gentlemen would welcome you at the polls on Tuesday to vote for them. Thank you for joining us, and again, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tim.
Goodbye.